Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. And in today's video, we're going to be continuing Kaguya-Sama Love is War, Queen of Thieves. What if Shirogane was Spider-Man, Season 2, Part 3. As always, if you're new to the channel or if you're a regular and like what we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that has to come out now and in the future. As we continue on into Part 3, we're only one more part away from the Season 2 finale. And with that, that'll wrap up this series for Phase 2. Now, I'm only doing the first 2 seasons for this phase because as I'm trying to learn from my previous outings with these stories, I don't want to try to blow everything in one go. Because you never know, the series might become more popular down the line, or it may not, and I may not continue it, but still, it's just a way to see how you guys like it so far. So if this series is popular enough and you guys do want to see it in future installments, then we can continue on with Season 3 and with the Kaguya-Sama movie that came out not too long ago. So definitely always keep that in mind with these stories going forward. If I don't have to cover everything in one phase, then I'm probably not going to. But that's just something to keep in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Ishigami was rolling on the ground laughing, and Shirogane was not too pleased with it. You just had to go on a rant about guys that wear boxers, huh? I mean, come on, a man whore? Where would you even come up with an idea like that? What? It's the truth. You know, you and your bias against people in relationships are going to cause a lot more harm than good. Well, good. Maybe it should. I can't stand people in relationships. I can't stand the romance and the happiness. But I'm not in a relationship. Oh, come on. We all know you want to be. You know, with the white tiger. I don't like her like that. But she clearly likes you. I mean, come on. Every time you're going on patrol, she's always under you. Like 24/7. Girl's kind of a stalker. I mean, she's new to the country and she's a new hero. I won't lie, it's nice to have someone to fight crime with, someone who I feel understands me somewhat. But still though, you think that fight with the Scorpion was nothing but a distraction? It had to be. Come on, the Scorpion wasn't even trying to fight like he wanted to kill me. Or maybe he did and I was just that good. But still, a heist going down on the opposite side of the city? That can't be a coincidence. So, you think the Black Cat's hiring thugs to try to keep you off guard while she's able to commit whatever crime she wants? That's probably the case. I wouldn't be shocked by it. Sounds to me like you should have brought her in when you had the chance. Look, you already know why. Yeah, I know. But still, in the end of the day, she's a criminal. You can't just be given passes as a criminal just because they do one nice act of kindness. Yeah, I know that. Shirogane was in a bit of a rut. Safe to say, fighting crime hadn't gotten any easier in the last few weeks. Between dealing with the Scorpion and even the Shocker, who somehow seemed to be in cahoots, all the while the Black Cat and her ally, the Silver Cat, were continuing on in their crime spree. Safe to say, the Spider-Man of Tokyo was running on fumes. Of course, the White Tiger wanted to help, but Shirogane was keeping her at arm's length for now. He was still trying to figure everything out and what he was trying to do ultimately. Of course, though, it didn't stop the White Tiger from being rather persistent, and we even have to admit that on one occasion she saved his life. When it seemed like he had been cornered, she had managed to swoop in at the last moment, stopping the Shocker from dealing a fatal blow. Seems like you can't take care of yourself, Spider. I was doing just fine. It's nothing. These guys have been running you ragged all week. It's about time you stop being stubborn and just accept my help. Yeah, but it's obvious you want more than that, don't you? Oh, what? Is it because of that kiss thing? Come on, I was just being, polite. I never thought kissing someone would be polite. What? You're hung up on the cat? There's no need to worry about it. It was just a one-time thing, right? You're over her now. I was never on her to begin with. Oh, please. I can tell that she's been on your mind non-stop. The one criminal that the great Spider-Man has never been able to catch. Even though I do believe you, you kind of have to wonder if the public's going to feel the same. I'm just doing what I can. I can't stop public opinion. Yeah, well, it is starting to change. I mean, after all, how much of a coincidence could it really be that you can manage to catch every single criminal, every metahuman that comes your way, but the black cat is the one that eludes you? It's a lot easier said than done. I'm sure. I'm starting to think you just don't know how to handle women. What are you talking about? Of course No. You pull your punches with her. I've been watching some old film of you and her in your ever-growing cat and mouse game that you've been playing. It's easy to see that whenever you go up against her, you don't put all your force into it. There's no ferocity. There's no intensity. I mean, I saw the way you fought against the Scorpion. The way you tried to give him a pile driver onto the concrete. I mean, if the man wasn't in a bodysuit of armor, you probably could have killed him. I wasn't trying to kill him. He was just putting out that much force and power. And you matched it. And you even exceeded it. The strength you have is truly amazing. Remarkable. But whenever you're fighting against the Black Cat, you pull your punches. Well, I'm obviously not trying to kill her. And no one's telling you to. But, here. Immediately, the White Tiger would begin to throw a series of combo strikes towards Spider-Man. Spider-Man having to use his reflexes and his skills to dodge and evade each attack, even countering with his own. However, the White Tiger was only having her point proven. Spider-Man was holding back against her. She would then pick up the intensity, becoming a lot more ferocious, even using her claws to try to scratch at him a few times, and even managing to land a scratch on his chest. Finally feeling ticked, he would use just a little bit of his strength, pinning her against the wall. That's enough playing around. See? I knew you could get serious when you want to be. While still under a red mask, if you couldn't tell, Shirogane was blushing profusely as he realized just how close they were. The two of them, their hearts beating almost a mile a minute, as he finally let go and created some space between them. Sorry about that. Do you want me to take a look? No, I'm fine. Look, maybe I do hold back, and I pull my punches somewhat, but I still think it's the best way to go. That's not my point. My point is that even while pulling your punches, I know for a fact you could take her down with ease. Yet, it's as if something just gets in your head every time you're against her. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe a crush? Maybe some underlying desire? It's nothing like that. Look, I let the Black Cat get away, and that's on me. I'm not gonna let it happen again. The next time she and I go face to face, I'm going to do whatever it takes to bring her down. Good, because I'm going to be right there with you. What? Oh, come on, she's going to have that silver cat next to her. You're going to need someone to watch your back. Besides, I want to see if the great Spider-Man can live up to the hype. So, the next time you go after her, I'm going to be with you. And I'm going to watch you succeed. Shirogane was all mixed up in the head. He wasn't entirely sure what to believe or what to do. The last few nights, he kept replaying that moment in his mind. Why did he let her go? Yeah, she saved the kid, but still, it was because of a problem that she started. If anything, it was the least she could do. But why? Why had he let her go? What was he trying to do? What was he even trying to prove? He really didn't know. He had no way of knowing. Of course, he wasn't the only one going through his own dilemma. Kaguya was also experiencing the same thing. She replayed that night over and over again in her mind. She was caught. He had her dead to rights. But, to be honest, was there a part of her that wanted to get caught? A part of her that just wanted all of this to end? Her family, her life of crime, all of it. She was more than willing to just give everything up in that moment. But to be honest, she already knew how that would have gone. Even if she had been caught, even if her identity had been revealed, in the end of the day, it wouldn't have changed what was going to happen to her. When it came to the family, ultimately, it was about protecting the family's own interest by any means necessary, even if it meant getting rid of her in the long run. She was aware of this. She knew it as plain as day. But still, maybe she just wanted that release, to be free of this never-ending cycle. Eventually, it was going to have to come to an end. She would be free one way or another. Of course, as for life at Shushin Academy, it continued on about as normally as you would hope it would. The newest addition to the student council, that being Miko, was less than enthusiastic about her upperclassmen and their behaviors. Ones that she deemed to be, well, less than appealing. For one thing, everyone, except for Chika, who was her favorite of course, were nothing more but slacking, rule-breaking ne'er-do-wells. There was Ishigami, who was constantly playing video games and eating snacks. Then there was the president, along with the vice president, and with the historian girl. They seemed to be in some weird sort of pseudo-love triangle kind of thingy. It wasn't something they were willing to admit or something you could even tell, but it was just the little things. For example, whenever Ava tried to make the president a cup of tea, Kaguya would get really bent out of shape about it. Or whenever Kaguya was trying to be a little too closer to the president, Ava would be a bit more perturbed. It was almost as if the two girls were fighting for his attention, and the president seemed to be too oblivious to notice anything that was going on. Or maybe it was the other way around. And then, of course, there was that incident when all three of them got trapped inside of the sports storage closet on the school grounds. That was a mess in and of itself. Not Shirogane's strongest or finest moment, especially when he thought that he was going to use the opportunity to get closer to Kaguya, and Kaguya would have thought the same thing. Hell, Ava probably would have thought the same thing, but instead all three of them legitimately got stuck in the closet. Ultimately, it came down to the two girls, well, going at one another, almost passive-aggressively, and Shirogane used the distraction long enough to forcefully break the handle and open the door. He didn't want to show off his super strength to anyone, but he thought that they'd be a little too distracted to notice, and you could just say that he jammed it free somehow. Of course, in the end of the day, though, the student council presidency, it was still a place where law and order had to be upheld somewhat, and Miko thought that it was her responsibility to do so. After all, her big sis Yuriko had just gotten promoted in the police force, and she wanted to live up to the ideals that her family instilled within her. But to her surprise, she would learn that things don't often go the way you expect them to. Of course, while rules, laws, and regulations should all be applied, there has to be some leniency, some level of leeway. If everything is so rough and rigid, then nothing would ever really get done. Shirogane even pointed that out to Miko one day while the two of them were walking down the hall. "You're not really fond of me, are you, Miko? I think as a student, you're superb, but I think as a human being, it leaves a lot to be desired." That's a little harsh, don't you think? Why? You and your lax attitude with the student council. I mean, you're the president, for crying out loud. You should take more responsibility. Like that placard you claim you live up to? I think I live up to it just well. I mean, after all, the students here are well behaved, things run functionally. I'm talking about morally. Come on, the image of this school has kind of been going down in the dumps for a bit, and it's been under your watch. Well, I can't really argue with that. I mean, academically, I like to think I can keep everyone on track, but ultimately there are things that even I can't fully solve. Why? I mean, you have the power to enact change, don't you? I'm pretty sure you're aware of my, living situations. I don't have the same means as you or Ishigami or Ava or Kaguya do. No, in fact, I'd say it's quite the opposite. The only reason why I hold any respect or any sort of authority is because I've worked as hard as I have. And even still, there are those that look down on me. In the end, what right do I have to tell those who are superior what to do? I can only try and guide them in the right direction as best I can. But see, that's what I'm talking about. It's that lax attitude of yours. If you were more like Spider-Man, and how could I be more like him? Shirogane couldn't help but smile to himself. Be him? He was him. They were one and the same, but still, he had to humor her. I mean, his never give up attitude. You remember what happened, right? That subway cart that was going to go off the rails. I mean, sure, it seemed like a hopeless situation, but he was still able to hang in there, despite the odds being stacked against him. Despite what the people say, what the public says, what anyone says about him, he still goes out there and does what needs to be done. It's something to be admired, to be respected. But in the end of the day, he's a vigilante. I mean, the last I checked, vigilantism isn't within the parameters of the law. And someone like you, who loves and is a stickler for the law, wouldn't you agree that he's no better than the criminals that he puts away? You know, people say that a lot. That because he's a vigilante, it makes all the good that he does in vain. But honestly, I don't see it that way. Well, maybe that's the type of example I take from Spider-Man. Sure, I may not always follow the rules, but it doesn't mean that I just break them liberally. It's not about picking which rules that I will and won't obey. It's about, having understanding. Not everything can be done by the book all the time, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The book is meant to provide order and structure, but sometimes in order to get things done, you have to operate outside of the system. With that sort of understanding, Miko kinda got it, at least kind of to a degree. Maybe working outside of the system wasn't that bad. In the meanwhile, the school festival was just around the corner. Ishigami, he had, no interest in participating in such things, although now he found himself doing so. He was a part of the school's cheerleading team. How he had gotten grouped up in something like this, he had no idea. Honestly, how Ishigami got into this life, he had no idea. But you're all probably wondering, how did Ishigami ever find out Shirogane was Spider-Man? Well, that's a story we're going to start telling here. It was just when he had first entered into Shushin Academy. He remembered after the incident at his middle school. He was a social pariah, to say the least. He had tried to stand up for justice. He had tried to stand up for what was right, for a girl that was blindly being used by her boyfriend. Even though he was socially in the right, the way he had gone about trying to enact his justice caused him to be looked at as the one in the wrong. What was worse, he had to apologize to the bastard. It was too much for him. He just couldn't take it. He didn't like the fact that everyone looked down on him, the fact that everyone thought so little of him. And in return, that's what he thought of the world. He didn't want to get involved. He didn't want to stick his neck out to help others. Why should he? The one time he tried to do so, he got burnt for it. Well, never again. He was never going to do that. Never again. But then he came along. Miyuki Shirogane, the boy that got him out of his slump and got him to attend Shushin Academy, who made him the student council's treasurer. At the beginning, everything was fine, cordial, and for the most part, he kept to himself. However, he noticed the strange, familiar patterns that the president was taking. He would always be out of class from time to time, and those times corresponded whenever Spider-Man was in action. He was also able to triangulate and calculate all of Spider-Man's patterns all throughout the city. And when you noticed every place he was and every place he had been, you could find the central point, the radius, if you will. In the end of the day, no matter how skilled you are as a hero, if you have limited means, your base of operations has to always come back to roost. After using all those calculations, he was able to determine the vicinity for where Spider-Man would most likely be living. Then, after crossing off the unlikeliest of suspects, it all came back to the president. Although finding it out was easier said than done. It started on a day as normally as any. Ishigami was staying after school, primarily because he had to make up one of his tests that he had missed. While he was getting ready to leave, he had walked into the student council room. He heard someone in the bathroom, and he saw a small trail of blood. As he went closer to seeing what was going on, he could see that the small trail of blood, it was coming from Shirogane. He had somehow gotten himself harmed. And even more shocking, Shirogane was Spider-Man. Of course, under normal circumstances, Ishigami would have totally geeked out over this, but right now, the person who had done so much for him was in critical condition. After locking the door, he would help tend to his wounds. It took a couple of hours, but eventually he was able to get the stitches, however bad they were, into place. Of course, for Shirogane, he thought that this was the worst. He had slipped up so bad that he had gotten caught. He would have taken care of this at home, but after his battle with the vulture and dealing with those blade-like wings that had cut through him pretty good, he was going to suffer from blood loss before he ever made it home. Stopping at the school was his best option, but still, he didn't expect anyone to be here, and especially Ishigami of all people. He was fearing the worst, but to his surprise, Ishigami was really cool about things. He wasn't pestering him with too many questions. For the most part, if you have a deductive brain, you can pretty much figure out everything without needing to ask for too much detail. Although by the time everything was said and done, they were kind of in a bit of a crossroads. Shirogane didn't like the idea of anyone at school knowing who he was. After all, this place was for people to remain anonymous about what they did for a living. Students and the parents of those students and even the staff alike. But still, Ishigami, he didn't want his friend to go out alone like this. Your suit's completely tethered. Oh, don't worry. I've got some old cloth and a few sewing kits at home. I can patch you back up. Yeah, but then you're just gonna look raggedy. I have the means of being able to make you a new suit. My family and the way we're able to fund things, I can get it under the radar. Ishigami, you don't look. You've done a lot for me. More so than anyone ever has. I don't have any aspirations of being a hero myself. But even still, if I can help a true hero, then I want to. So let me do this. I can watch your back. I can think and come up with ways to make sure that no one's able to track onto you. And besides, if a slacker like me was able to figure it out even before I could confirm it, then unless you think you can go completely oblivious, then there are probably others who might be able to do the same. And then you and your family will be at risk. After thinking it over, Shirogane would agree. And ever since then, this is how the dynamic duo was started. Shirogane working as student council president and of Spider-Man, and his right-hand man, Yu Ishigami. Yu Ishigami was like the man in the chair for Spider-Man, if you will. Someone who could coordinate with him over radio wave and communications, who was able to get him built-in custom web shooters, as well as his new suit that he wore with pride. On top of that, Ishigami had the ability to make sure that anyone who was suspicious was kept in the dark, thus keeping his identity intact. This is how the relationship had worked between the two all the way up until now. Of course, Ishigami knew that this probably wouldn't last forever. One day his friend would move on with his life, and soon he'd go back to fading in the shadows. But, for now at least, while they still had this time together, Ishigami would do the best he could. Because after all, the world still needed Spider-Man. This concludes Kaguya-Sama Love is War, Queen of Thieves. What if Shirogane was Spider-Man? Season 2, Part 3. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that is to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we continue Kill la Kill, The Web of Life. What if Spider-Gwen was in Kill la Kill Part 7? But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.